Hello and welcome to the SwineTime podcast. I am your host, Spencer Wayne. I am one of the staff veterinarians here at the Pipestone Vet Clinic, or I should say Pipestone Vet Services. And been hanging around here for a while. I'm kind of an old dog now. I'm one of the vets. I'm also one of the owners of Pipestone Holdings. And one of the things that they let me do periodically is to host this podcast. And I get to have really interesting guests. Most of the time, they're folks within our company telling us good things that they're doing. But in this case, we've got some outside folks, which I really enjoy because you don't have the internal think tank. Sometimes it's good to get outside people coming in to talk about important things. And so today I have three guests, and I always say they're special guests, but they're special today too, no less. And we've got Tyler Holck, Tom Wetzell, and Vienna Brown. And Vienna, I didn't ask, are you a veterinarian?
I'm not.
PhD and MPH. Okay, but doctor no less. So three doctors, Dr. Tyler Holck and Tom Wetzell, who are veterinarians, then Vienna Brown from the USDA, and she is a PhD holder. But I'll let them introduce themselves right now, and then we've got an interesting topic to cover for the next 20 minutes or so. So starting with, you're in my upper right-hand screen, Tyler, so why don't you introduce yourself a little, and we'll hand it over to Tom and then to Vienna.
Sounds great, Spencer. Thank you, and thanks for having us on. Again, Tyler Holck, veterinarian by training, raised in Northwest Iowa. My dad had a 300 sow farrow to finish operation back in the 70s and 80s, which was huge back then, which I'm not sure would be considered that today. But had a great background in swine, went on to undergrad at South Dakota State, got an animal science degree, and then vet school down at Iowa State. Been serving the swine industry now for 36 years, so you think you're old, Spencer. Try this seat. But really appreciate the opportunity to serve the industry. And the last 4 years have been spending a lot of my time with the topic we're going to cover today, which is U.S. Swine Health Improvement Plan, or U.S. SHIP. And I've had the opportunity to serve on the pilot team that's been helping to develop that program over the last 4 years. And as we'll find out from Dr. Brown, we're in the process of now transitioning that over to the USDA.
Oh, good. Thank you, Tyler. And then as we get into the topic, I'd love it if you shared a little bit of history of how it developed, why it developed, some of the background. But we'll get into that in a bit. Tom, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm not going to try and one-up you guys on old dog stuff here today. I certainly could, but veterinarian from southern Minnesota here, graduate University of Minnesota, grew up in my father's veterinary practice and was a swine consultant for quite a few years, went to work in pharmaceutical industry as a technical service veterinarian, worked very closely with a lot of Pipestone customers during that time frame that I was there. I'm now semi-retired and doing some work for the Minnesota Pork Producers Association with this U.S. SHIP program, and also with an animal health task force that's trying to improve our focus on animal health within the state of Minnesota. Spence.
All right. Thank you, Tom. And Vienna, we'll wrap it up with you on introductions. Can you introduce yourself and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm Vienna Brown. I am I guess the U.S. SHIP senior coordinator. I just started about 3 months ago. And before that, I was with Wildlife Services, working with the National Feral Swine Program. So I have a long history with swine. But moving from feral to domestics has been a big change and a really exciting opportunity. And before that, I did some work with Department of Homeland Security at the interface of kind of risk analyses at their interface of domestic livestock and wildlife, looking at kind of the 5 big born animal diseases. And then did a PhD in microbiology and a master of public health. So have long interest and expertise kind of at that interface, and really excited to be with Veterinary Services Swine team working on the SHIP program.
Yeah, very interesting. I think you are well pedigreed for this job, backgrounded for it, given the wild pig. I didn't realize when you said Wildlife Services, I didn't realize that was with wild pigs.
Yeah.
But I'd like to talk to you offline about that sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so great. So we got 3 people in here to talk about U.S. SHIP, and please, just for a minute or so, take us through. What does it stand for? You did introduce the acronym already, but what does it stand for? What's the origin of it? I know there's some reference of this program back on the poultry side with the program they developed. Anything you think would be helpful for our listeners to understand where it came from as a program and why it would be beneficial or is beneficial now, and how it'll be beneficial conceptually going forward why we need it. And we'll get into the program details after that. But history really is
Sure.
what I'm looking for, Tyler, if you wouldn't mind giving it.
Yeah. No, that's great. We'll keep this at a high level, but if you go back about 6 years ago, 2018, 2019, Dr. Roger Main at Iowa State University, the veterinary diagnostic lab, had a grant from the pork board to look at what would it look like to take this program that's been in the poultry industry for almost 90 years called the National Poultry Improvement Plan. What would it look like to have a national health certification plan for our pork industry? And so he spent a year just studying this NPIP, National Poultry Improvement Plan. And his conclusion, his report, which was turned into the pork board and then subsequently to the USDA, was this could really benefit our industry. And so fast forward a couple of years, in the late 2020, through a USDA grant, we developed a pilot team to start piloting a U.S. SHIP, the Swine Health Improvement Plan, and we targeted some of the major swine states. We targeted some of the key producers just to see, would you be interested in a program like this? The benefits that the NPIP got from their program and have gotten now for 90 years, dramatic reduction in domestic disease prevalence to the point where they've essentially eradicated several diseases. And also most recently with the high path AI outbreaks that have been around for the last couple of years, they've allowed the poultry industry to continue to export their poultry products even in the face of a foreign animal disease. And so those are a couple of the benefits that Roger saw we could potentially have in the swine industry. And we've spent the last 4 years building a program which is now at the cusp of becoming a USDA program like NPIP for our swine industry.
Okay. You said some things there, Tyler, that caught me. I was familiar with the program, but one thing you said was it potentially would be a platform for disease elimination, where in my head it was something to maintain exports, basically to document and show good control for the maintenance of partitioned export or whatever, so that that all-important export pig that allows us to function. So that's interesting. I didn't realize it was a platform for actual elimination programs, potentially.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a quick stab, but let Tom and Vienna pipe in as well. But our initial focus, you're absolutely right, Spencer, is on African swine fever and classical swine fever, which are actually diseases we don't have. So they're foreign animal diseases. But modeled after NPIP, putting in place a U.S. SHIP program where we'd have certified supply chains could actually allow us in the future to export pork even if we got one of those diseases. So that has been our focus. But just recently, in fact, in this last year at what we call a House of Delegates, a resolution was passed to start looking at domestic diseases. And so the potential for U.S. SHIP to be the platform to consider an elimination program of a disease we've already got, for example, PEDV or mycoplasma. Mm-hmm. So it has started with a focus for foreign animal disease, so you're absolutely right. But the opportunity is for that same framework of biosecurity, traceability, and surveillance to work for domestic diseases.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Tyler and Spencer and Vienna, that you know, the way that this would develop on these endemic diseases would be with individual farm certification, that these individual sites, and it's a site program, it's by site, would be certified as free of the disease, whether that be PED or mycoplasma, as Tyler, as you mentioned, for example. And so you build it, it's a building block that you develop standards for, that of what it's going to take to certify that site to be free of that disease, that pathogen. And from that building block, you could develop that into a regional and eventually even a national elimination program. That's how I think we see that developing over time if we want to take this platform that was started with these two foreign animal diseases that you mentioned, Tyler, and expand that into something that could be very significant for the industry in regards to pathogens that we currently do have.
Okay, I want to get into that probably a little bit later when we talk about what it means for producers, the functional how does this actually work? Because there's questions I got
Sure.
on how that happens. But
Yep.
for now, just to tap into a little bit of the completing the description of the program itself. Sounds like, Tyler, you said this started with the inception of an idea from Roger Main to basically replicate some of the things that the poultry industry had done that were beneficial there. Is it an Iowa State-oriented project? You were an Iowa State person. You are still under the umbrella of the Iowa State organization developing the pilot. Tom is brought in with Minnesota Pork Producers Association as a basically get out the vote kind of a thing, or go out and meet with producers. And then you have Vienna, who is well backgrounded for this job, who's coming in as officially as the program director for it now under the USDA directly. And it sounds like, Tyler, you are handing that off to her. That would be a description of kind of the way this thing is floated to its current form. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Over the course of these first 4 years, while it's a pilot phase, and all of this, by the way, is voluntary, and in fact, the National Poultry Improvement Plan is voluntary as well, but that's been in place since 1935, and it's essentially 100% of their industry. So they've got that background. We're trying to get that background brought into the pork industry. But we've got 36 states that are participating in the program already. And we started enrolling and then subsequently certifying sites. So this is a certification based on sites a couple of years ago, and we're already at 75% of the sow base, and around 65% of the grow finish base are already participating in the U.S. SHIP. But part of this podcast is, hey, if you haven't heard about U.S. SHIP, or if you want to know more, we need everybody to participate in U.S. SHIP, because ultimately, if we go back to that first benefit you mentioned about exporting product, a supply chain needs to be 100% certified. Mm-hmm. And so we need to get more and more of the producers. We've had a great start. Now we're at the process of transitioning this over to the USDA, and we hope to continue to expand the participation from all pork producers in the U.S.
For a point of reference, what is the poultry participation? Sorry, Tom, I'll let you jump in a second.
No, it's good.
What is
it's essentially 100%.
Okay. It's more consolidated as an industry. Maybe it makes it easier, but it is 100%. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And it's voluntary as well. Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the challenges, Spencer, is that, we are not as vertically integrated in the pork industry as the poultry industry is. And so there's definitely, it takes a little bit more effort to get as wide a participation as they have in the poultry industry right now. But I do want to point out one other thing in the history and the background that I think is really significant here is how much industry involvement there's been in these first 4 years of the program of developing the resolutions and standards to start this out on a firm footing as the USDA takes it over. And so we've had, like Tyler mentioned, 4 different House of Delegates meetings where anywhere from 200 to 250 industry people, including people from all segments of industry, are engaged in helping to decide what program should be in place and what things need to be explored. On top of that, we've got multiple working groups that each year are working on different programs to try and help understand what further needs to be developed, such as things as transport. Feral pigs is a big one right now that Vienna, you're well aware of. So, it's a ground-up program that's developing standards that then the USDA will take into consideration and put into hopefully a program that becomes codified and becomes something that is available to really have a USDA stamp of certification on.
And that's critical. So in transitioning this over to Vienna here, now that it's on its way to the USDA, which we're actually right in the middle of an important step, which is public comment on this US SHIP program. Once it becomes codified, then our trade partners will recognize it. A lot of the hard work, all the hard work and great work that's been done so far is wonderful, but that's setting the stage for it to finally become a USDA codified program. And it'll have the USDA shield, and it will be therefore recognized by our trade partners, which has been an important step all along that we finally achieved. And Vienna, we're currently, in the middle of the public comment period, and once we come out of that, we see that your USDA team will continue to nurture and grow this program going forward.
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks for the background on that, which is probably a nice way to lead us into really the next discussion point, which is the meat and potatoes portion of this, which is I'm a guy with 3 finishing barns. I get pigs from a guy I have a contract with. I sell X number of pigs a year. Well, I haven't even heard of this. And I'm part of the 35% that's not participating right now. What do I do? What does this mean? What do I have to record? Am I logging into a website? Functionally, what is actually happening if I'm a grow finish guy? Can one of you take us through what the day in the life looks like for participation?
You want to run with that, Tyler, to start with, or you want me to tackle that one?
I would say it's simple, and then Tom can dive into the details because he can give examples from Minnesota, for example. But it's essentially administered at the state level, Spencer. So if you're a farmer, if you have sites in Minnesota, you're going to be working with the Minnesota Board of Animal Health and Minnesota pork producers, as Tom mentioned. Same thing in South Dakota and Iowa would be with IDALs and the Iowa pork. You simply need to fill out an enrollment form that basically provides some basic demographic information about your farm and contact information. Again, this is great because for your state veterinarian, you're starting to build a relationship with your state veterinarian. Should we ever have a crisis, they've already got your information. Then, as Tom mentioned, to become certified, you basically have to comply with some basic standards relative to biosecurity, traceability, and surveillance. And those will end up being specific for ASF and CSF. And then if down the road we bring in PEDV, those will also be some different standards to comply with. But ultimately, you follow through on those standards, and you will then be certified. Your site will be certified as monitored for ASF and CSF. And then the great thing about that, as I've mentioned previously, is the more sites that get certified, then we start getting complete supply chains in place, whether that be Holstone or JBS or Hormel. They're going to want all of their producers. We want all of the producers involved so that we can have certified supply chains.
Right. Does this relate to the secure pork supply program that many people would be familiar with already? That was rolled out and at the state level administered. Sounds like they're hand and glove kind of a thing. Is that true? Or how would you put that together?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you bring that up because that, for example, is the requirement for site biosecurity within U.S. SHIP. So that it was not the intentions to recreate the wheel or have these disparate activities going on. It's things that most producers are already doing. But what I describe is now they're getting credit for what they've been doing by becoming certified in U.S. SHIP.
Okay. I'm thinking what a producer might be thinking, especially the further west you go, the more independent-minded you might be. This is all voluntary. It was stated already. So, okay, I'm going to participate. I don't have to. It's voluntary. But now it's going to get official recognition within the USDA, and that allows that stamp or that umbrella to be under, and so they can go to trading partners and say, hey, we've got a program here. It's well-controlled, hopefully 100% participation or whatever level. You can represent what the program is to a foreign country officially as the U.S. government and have the respect of that. The question I got has to do with enforcement and potential elimination programs in the future. And this maybe is a part that nobody can comment on. But if it's voluntary, people feel comfortable, but it's the government and is somebody going to tell me what to do? And what level is there friction anywhere in there that you can see that you would have to navigate?
I'll just take a quick stab and then I'll turn it over to Tom and Vienna. But that's actually why we're putting this program in place, is to have cooperation or collaboration between industry, meaning packers and producers, state, federal officials. And so this House of Delegates that Tom mentioned, everybody's at the table and everybody's voting together. And so it's not top down, it's ground up. and it's an opportunity for there to be some collaboration, which quite honestly, I think previously in the past, there's not been. But I think to your point about, well, it's voluntary, why would anybody do it? Tom, why don't you just walk through a little bit of the experience in Minnesota, and your swine health committee is really thinking about leveraging this platform, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's some real value that I think I see, and I mean, there's a reason I'm involved with this, and frankly, it's because I think this is one of the most important initiatives that the industry's had available to them that can really move us along the platform that we want to be in regards to really three things that I see. One is the export market that Spencer, you've already mentioned, and certainly for our export partners, making sure that we have this USDA seal on product that is certified will make a huge difference. And the examples in the poultry industry has already proven that, from the first HPI high path influenza break that happened a few years ago to the more recent one. The amount of countries that are accepting our product in the face of that disease has grown dramatically, and that's because of the NPIP certification program that's there for the high path avian influenza. So there's certainly that. The second, though, I think that's probably even more critical that we haven't touched on for producers that I'm really pushing with is business continuity. And we have to understand that this program is not just for producers, but it's for packers also. There's a packer certification program that packing plants can be certified in the U.S. SHIP program. Now, in order for that to occur, of course, their suppliers are going to have to be certified, right? But once that happens, Spencer, then you've got the ability that in the face of a ASF incursion or a CSF incursion in the U.S., if you are in an area that is not in this where the outbreak has actually occurred, where there you're going to have to do exactly what the government is saying. In these outside of those areas, you have the ability potentially, we hope, to continue to sell product while we're dealing with those outbreaks. And that's huge, because we're talking about the potential here of losing 25 to 30% of our pork supply with ASF or CFS if it comes in and we don't have programs like this in place with the ability to control and continue with moving product. So that's the second. And then the third thing I would say, again, is this whole idea that what we're focusing on in Minnesota a little bit more is trying to understand how can we leverage programs like this to improve our health status, reduce the cost of the burden of disease that's occurring with high morbidity and mortality on individual sites and individual systems. And having this kind of platform in place allows producers potentially to put a system in place that monitors and makes sure that they're staying free of these diseases that are costing them a significant amount of money right now today. So that's the pitch that I see that I believe is real, that could have a huge benefit long term just for the U.S. industry. The national health could improve so dramatically through a program like this.
Yeah, no, Tom, very well stated, I think, and it's kind of hitting me, and I'm slow, so I'm catching up. The packer, really the person buying your hogs, they're hugely important in the implementation of this, in that they will basically say, well, we need this done for the people that are supplying our pigs, just like PQA, anything else. It will be implemented really at the behest of the folks that are buying the pigs, largely, because the participation will be key to that, because they need to be able to sell stamped pork. Basically, this is part of the program. It'll survive a storm and hopefully be able to continue exports. And so, did I state that fairly as far as the realistic outcome of this? It'll be probably packer driven, largely just for participation. Yes and no?
Well, I would say it'll be collaboratively industry, right? And why I say that is, and we've got some examples of producers actually going to their packers and saying, hey, where are you on this program? Because I really believe in this program. All of my sites are enrolled and certified, but I'm not going to benefit from it unless you're on board. So I see it as both coming to the table. And just one comment I want to make sure we put out there. We talked about biosecurity, traceability, and surveillance. But lest anybody think, well, there's these huge requirements to be certified. There's some basic production parameters, programs, processes that they already have in place, more than likely. You've already mentioned the secure pork supply plan. That's the biosecurity. The other ones for biosecurity would be 5 days downtime from coming from an ASF or CSF positive country. Well, I think everybody already acknowledges that, but now we're having a national standard that's saying, let's do 5 days downtime. Let's not have garbage feeding. Well, I think most people don't garbage feed. So there's some basic premises that are in the standards that most producers are already doing. So by signing up, they'll probably immediately be certified. So just want to make that comment that the bar isn't that high, but it is a standard that we're hoping to get nationally.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, Spencer, I would want to point out too that in Minnesota, and I know that Iowa and South Dakota have very similar steps to take here, is that it's available, all the initial steps to enroll through the Minnesota Board of Animal Health in the case of Minnesota's website. And there is a drop-down menu where you drop down on swine, and then you click on the U.S. Swine Health Improvement Plan tab, and from there it's going to take you to a brief enrollment form where you can enroll either one site or multiple sites for your producers that have more than one site, and you submit that with that information that Tyler mentioned before, the basic information, with a couple other requirements that are asked for, including like that you have a secure pork supply plan in place, that you have 30 days of movements available that you can show for each site. And with those things, you can get your enrollment done fairly quickly. And I just, for me, what's really important right now is that we have to increase that enrollment. And for this program to be effective on a national level, we do have to get that number of sites enrolled at a higher participation level.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Tom. And your point, if I summarize it, is you've got a state that you live in and farm in that likely has some kind of a website for assistance on participation. You go to the Minnesota State Board of Animal Health, or say what that site was in Minnesota, because I think I probably got it wrong. Which website? It
is the Minnesota Board of Animal Health.
Okay.
If you Google that, you get to their website, and you'll be able to navigate pretty easily to that. And certainly, Spencer, through if somebody contacts you guys at Pipestone, there's a way to get a hold of me. I'm available for producers not only in Minnesota, but the Minnesota pork producers have graciously said they would be happy to have me help with producers that live in Iowa or South Dakota with their sites there to help with enrollment processes.
Okay, great. So Vienna, we've largely ignored you in this whole thing, and you're key to everything happening. And it was mentioned already, this is in a state of a commentary period, and so there are probably some limitations in what the discussion can even be. But could you spend a second or two and just say, okay, you guys talked out of school a little bit on this because we're not allowed to talk about certain things, or put some handcuffs on it on what this previous discussion is, if you would, on what was appropriate, and if you need to clarify anything, I'd invite you to do so, just so that we didn't say something stupid, because you are the official person, and we got to make sure that we're not screwing it up. At least me. That's my own direction to myself.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. I appreciate Tyler and Tom's comments. So from a USDA perspective, we're in a really exciting time. The draft rule and the program standards are open for public comment on the Federal Register, and so that's a really important step in the potential for the program to move forward as a codified regulatory animal health program. So we're really excited about that proposition. And Spencer, I'm happy to share with you the link for regulations.gov. If your listenership has interest in reviewing the draft rule and program standards, they are welcome to comment.
Yeah, please. Where is that site? Don't hesitate to lay that out clearly.
Yep. I will shoot it to you in an email, but it's regulations.gov, and it's a very formal website, Federal Register. But the listenership and anyone, the public writ large, is welcome to read every page, every word of the draft rule and the program standards to really kind of see what has been put forward. between the Iowa State pilot team and USDA in terms of what has been proposed for the codified program. And so we will, when the public comment period is open for 30 days, so it'll close at the end of January. And then the USDA team will be going through each of those comments, responding to them, modifying the document as appropriate. And so there's a very kind of structured procedural process in how this works. So
I imagine if you go to regulations.gov, I think that's the site you said to go to. Is it easy enough to find there? Because that sounds like you'd enter every kind of regulation, do a search term under a ship. How would you find it?
You could spend hundreds of hours reviewing every proposed rule. But if you just type in the search box like Swine Health Improvement Plan, it'll pop right up. Okay. It's fairly user friendly, and like I said, I'll shoot it to you in an email. And so you'll have that at your fingertips. But yeah, we're really, really excited. This is modeled after the MPIP program on the poultry health side. And the US SHIP program is just the structure is such that it allows for grassroots initiatives and broad leadership across the whole of the swine industry. It's designed to capture and support the goals of the whole industry, recognizing that there's a lot of different voices, and so we're really excited to have that opportunity to create the program. So we're so thankful for the work that Iowa State has done, and then grassroots efforts across all of the participating states. It's been a huge lift. So we're really, really excited.
Okay, I'll make some comments just from our organization, but before I get into that, did we miss anything? You three speakers, you've shared quite a bit. I think the listener would have an understanding of what the program is, how to participate, some of the history. Anything we've failed to mention?
I think there'd be value, Spencer, if Vienna would be willing to share the vision that USDA and she has about the hope to see where the program goes in the future from her perspective and the USDA's perspective.
Yeah, please share that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tom. And Spencer. So we are, as Tyler mentioned, we're continuing to enroll participants. And for the last handful of years, enrollment has been the big push, and the House of Delegates delegate number has been around enrollment. For the 2025 cycle, we're actually moving to certification. So really starting to kind of get the teeth in the program in terms of it's great that folks are interested and enrolled, but we really need to move forward in making sure that the pillars of biosecurity and traceability and sampling and testing are being set up, and the framework is there for the program. In terms of U.S. SHIP codification, it brings new opportunities. It allows for the formalization of the General Conference Committee, or the GCC, which has been working in a pilot capacity within the pilot program, but this allows for the formalization of that advisory committee. It also allows us to expand the breadth and efficiency of the technical committees, which provide professional, subject matter expertise and professional expertise around, again, the three pillars of the SHIP program. And so we're really excited to continue hearing the voices of swine producers nationwide via the House of Delegates. And so it's just a really unique structure and a really unique opportunity for voices all across the swine industry to participate in carving out what they want their animal health program to look like. We see a lot of enthusiasm for the program across the whole of the pork supply chain. And we're working in partnership with USDA trade staff to market the program to our trading partners. So it's just a really exciting time to be a part of the U.S. Swine Health Improvement Plan program. And there's so much good work going on in the swine industry. So there's traceability initiatives that are going on within the SHIP program, and of course, other initiatives going on outside of the SHIP program, but it really allows for the coalescence of all these different initiatives, the secure pork supply, PQA plus. So it's just, it's not redundant or duplicative to any of those initiatives, but it allows for, kind of tethers all of those. And so it's an exciting time to be a part of SHIP. And so we look forward to continuing leveraging and integrating these networks, resources and skill sets, and kind of providing kind of a uniform place for all of this great work to continue.
All right.
So exciting times on the SHIP side.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. Thanks for calling that up, Tom. I knew we hadn't made enough time for that, for just to promote it going forward, what it looks like, which is a nice lead in for just some comments I'd like to make for us. And because all of you have mentioned the high participation rate from industry representatives, And so you'll have hundreds of people participating in these meetings, and it's not a star chamber of just a few and just some bureaucrats. This has been largely participated in, and I didn't realize that until you described it better in this conversation. But a lot of participation, coming to a consensus, voting. You get the House of Delegates. I mean, these things are. It sounds like it's being done right as far as getting people to leave that meeting saying we should do this with some consensus of this is a good thing for us, rather than something being imposed, which should make voluntary participation like much, much higher level than otherwise would be. Fairly said? Stated right?
Spot on.
Great. So from Pipestone, my partner, Joel Neerum, was planning to be here. He can't be. And he's really a person that's been heavily involved on our end. And a few comments just from us that he said, would you mind passing this on? Would be this. We've been a supporter of this since the beginning. And it's taken different forms as it's developed, but we've always been a supporter of this. So from our organization, this is a good thing. We think people should participate in this. Any of the production sites that we have direct management oversight for, we have enrolled in. So we're participating already, would be the next point. We've had several people that have participated in these meetings. I just mentioned Joel, but there's been others as well. And you go there, and it's large voting bodies and a lot of deliberation, description of things, just to get to a point of consensus so you can go forward. We served as delegates, and from not just from Minnesota, but from multiple states. So we've heavily participated, which further supports our support for the program. And the last point is with FAD preparedness, we do feel it's very important. So we've just got it off the coast of the U.S. and the Gulf of Mexico, an island that's positive for African swine fever as a looming specter. It's only a boat ride away for having to deal with these type programs. So we feel it is important, if nothing else, just for that, to manage that risk that's presenting itself there. I think I said everything Joel would want me to say and represents what we would want to communicate. So if there's no final comments, we've beat our listeners up for about over half an hour now, 36 minutes, which is a record, but it was good material to cover. So if you guys have any final comments, I'd invite them now.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Spencer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all
very much.
Second that. Thanks so much.
It was nice getting to know you, Vienna, a little bit on this podcast. And I thank our listeners for tuning in, and invite the listeners to tune in next time for the next episode of the SwineTime podcast here at Pipestone. The SwineTime podcast was created for the pork industry and individual pork producers around the country. Hosted by me, Dr. Spencer Wayne with Pipestone Veterinary Services, the podcast contains pork industry news, advancements in animal care, and how to enhance your productivity. Find the SwineTime podcast at www.pipestone.com or on your favorite listening platform.